Hello. Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and make a video here about a common mod that a lot of people do on the C7 Corvette, and that is to make their car louder for free, and they go ahead and pull the NPP fuse on it. That works really great. It does make the car louder because it opens up the circuitry and keeps the mufflers open at all times. But at the same time, if you take the fuse and you keep it out, then when you're driving on the freeway or a highway or whatever you're doing, it's going to be loud in the sense it's going to give you a lot of drone. Kind of gets old after a short time. There are a few other options out there that you can do to get around this, where you have those mild to wild switches where you can go and buy them, and there's a wireless controller that can control turning it on or off. Those are great, they work pretty well, but they cost I think like 80 bucks or something like that. Like, now there's got to be an easier way around it, so I just came up with this. I wanted to show you guys how. I put in a little switch on my dash that lets me control the NPP simply at the flick of a switch. I don't have to go into the entertainment center or infotainment system and go to the settings and change that, go back and forth, whatever. So I can control it very, very easily just with a simple switch that I have on there. And I wanted to show you how I did that and how you can basically do this same modification. You can see the diagram for the actual NPP system itself. Okay, so on the underhood junction block, let's see if I can get it to focus here. Okay, so you have fuse, it's a 20 amp fuse that says exhaust valve 2. That is the fuse that you would pull to have the NPPs open at all time. So it just kind of goes down there, and there's the circuitry. Just follow it down. And when you see, it splits, and it goes all the way down here, and there's your two valves for your left and right mufflers, okay? Now, if you open that and pull it open, that's what's going to leave the circuitry open, and therefore the valves are going to stay open at all times. So what I did was, I went up into the junction block right about here, at this point in the junction block, and I cut the wire and ran an extra switch to control the circuit however I please, while still leaving the fuse in place. Now, that has a big advantage in the sense that I can control it from a flick of a switch, but I also still have the fuse in place, so just in case something happens, the circuit is still protected. So here is where I mounted my switch, just right down next to the console right there. It's easy to see, easy to get to, but it still doesn't, stick out further, isn't like big and ugly and looks out of factory or anything like that. The main thing I liked about this switch too is that this pod right here that it sits in sticks to the actual backup part of that thing right there, that little trim piece. The other problem of seeing some people have it when they kind of do this type of thing is they will get one that you have to drill a hole into that piece. But what that does is now you have some circuitry and some stuff sticking out the back of it. Then whenever you put the screen up and down, it hits that thing that's protruding out in the way, and it can cause damage. Now, we all know these things already have enough problems as it is going up and down. Those little ribbons break all the time, so we don't need something else. The advantage to this is that it just sticks right on, and it doesn't protrude in the back, and it keeps everything free and clear. You can see the wires going on there, and all I did was basically run them across the console to the other side. Now, once I had them run on the other side, I just poked it through through the whole center there using basically a pickup tool with a little claw on it. I was just able to fish it over. A little bit of a pain, but not that bad. So then, once you go, you'll take all this stuff out right here. You'll take these plates out, and up in that corner right there, you will see a grommet for some weather strip, for a grommet to hold all the wires. Then, what you want to do is, I'm not going to take all that out because it was a huge pain to take it all out, and it's pretty annoying to do, but I'll show you have an idea as where it comes in. All the way tucked down there, you will see it come through and come out. That's where I ran it through. And then once you run it through, you run all the way to the side over here and up to the under part of the junction block right here. Once it gets to the under part of the junction block, that's where you can go ahead and tap it in. Once you tap it into there, you can control it from the switch, and everything works out pretty well. Now, like I said, I'm not going to pull up all of that, all the grommets and everything that run the wires up through, because it was a pretty big pain in the butt. It is going to be a little time consuming. You are going to have some patience. The best things that you're going to be able to do it with would be a simple pickup tool that has the little claw on the end of it. This one worked out great because it has a light on it as well. And maybe a long screwdriver, long flathead screwdriver, and coat hanger, maybe if you can have that too. It is going to take some patience. You do have to be careful when you put this stuff through because there are wires down there, so you don't want to hit anything else that's going to cause it to kind of get a little screwed up later on or cause like chafing issues with other circuitry. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you how to take all this apart to get to where you need to and how to tap into it, and so you can control the switch from inside. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to have to do is go and disconnect your battery. That's kind of self-explanatory. Go ahead and disconnect the battery first, because once you take this thing up right here, you're going to have open cables, you know, and anything arcing. So go in the back, open up the trunk, battery's on the right side towards the back, 10mm bolt, take off the negative side of the terminal. Then get to work down here. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get all the hoses and everything out of the way to gain access to this down here. Nothing too crazy, nothing too tricky to get all this stuff off. I'm sure everybody is pretty familiar with that. Come over to this line over here, little white tab, push it in, pull that out. Take off this little plastic clip right here, and this little clip as well, just to move them out of the way. Then come over to this one, push that down, or push it in first, down, and then out. A lot of people, when they take these things out, they will just kind of push down on it and try to like pull it all the way back. What you want to do is push it in first a little bit, then push down, and then push it, it'll slide out a lot easier for you. Come over here to this one right here, and again, same thing. Push down, push in that white button, and then pulls right out super easy. I like to take the purge line out of the way here, so we'll go ahead and get that out, just because it makes it a little easier just to get to everything. So all that comes out, purge line out of the way. Take this out, that's already loose, and then this. This you gotta be super careful with. It's already pre-loosened. That's the vent on the valve cover. These things do snap, so just when you pry it back, you're literally just gonna take a little flathead screwdriver, a little tool, and just kind of pry it back a little bit. Don't be surprised if it snaps. They almost all do. But once you have that out, pull that out, get this stuff out of the way. Then take this line right here, this one right here, and I'm just going to move it up out of the way. On any other car, you can go and disconnect it and pull it out. On mine, it's a little bit more of a pain because the other end of it is tucked all the way underneath where the supercharger inlet pipe is. So this car has an A&A kit on it, which I'll be doing a video on as well too. But it's kind of a little bit of a pain. So all I do is just kind of slide it out of the way, because it's really all you really need to do at that point. So now you have the fuse box. Okay, take this front clip, pull, cover comes right off. No big deal. Okay, then to get this out, you have these little tabs. And these little tabs are a little bit of a pain, but not really. There's 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, all you have to do is stick a little screwdriver and bend them back, just like that. Do it to all 4 of them, and then you should be able to lift it up and out. Once you lift it up and out, you're going to kind of have to play with the handles a little bit to get it up and out, but it's not that big of a deal. So, do 1, 2, and then this will start to slide up, and then this one over here, 3, 4. Now once you do that, all you have to do is lift these handles together and pull it up, and it'll come right, the whole junction block will come right out. As you're pulling it up and out, you're going to kind of have to wiggle and play with it. So pull it there, and then pull, and then just kind of go back and forth, and it will come out. But first, once you get those out of the way, you have to disconnect the other cables, positive terminal cables. Just a little clip right there, you do that, pull it forward, it goes right up. Then, take the nut off. It's a 13mm nut. And just get that out of the way right there. Once that's off, me personally, just because I don't like to tug on too much, take a little hook tool, a little right angle hook, go underneath, and pull it up and get it up out of the way. So now, once it's up and out of the way, again, just go back to these handles and go back and forth as you pull it up, and it'll just come right out. Now you got to get the underside out. Now, to get that out, you have to take out the connectors themselves. So the connectors themselves come out pretty simply. Each one of these will have a tab on it. See, you got one right there, and then this one has it right there, and then you'll see them on all the rest of them as well too. This one has it right here, that one's right there, and that one is right there. All you have to do to get these things out is take a little screwdriver, stick it in, and just push that tab back in. You don't even really need a screwdriver. And then while you're doing that, push it towards the front of the car. Okay? But you got to make sure that tab is unlocked. So unlock it, push it forward, and that's it. Once you have that, grab it, and it'll lift up and right out. Do that to all 5 of them. See? Up and out. This one squeezes out that way. And all the rest of them, you just do the same. Push that little tab in. Now these, you obviously slide towards the back of the car. And it just comes right out. This one's the only one that kind of sticks a little bit just because of the way the wiring sits. It's a little tight, but it will go. And then that one, same. Okay. Now, once you have those all free, you're going to have to take this thing out, the actual casing for it. And that's held in by 3 10mm bolts. You got one right there, you got one right there, and you got one right there. 3 10mm bolts. Once you get those 3 out, this thing will lift up out of the way. The only other things that you're going to have to do is just pop this little coolant line up out of the way. Just pop that out, it just comes right up. First you want to disconnect it from over here from this tab right there. Stick a little screwdriver in, pop it, loose, and that gives you the wiggle room. And come back over here, and it just pulls right up. Okay, don't disconnect it from right there because you will have coolant going all over the place. I'd like to think that's just common sense, but you know, hey. So now you just take those 3 10mm out, and that thing will be free. Okay. One, two, three. Put those aside. And then this AC clip right down here, you're just going to want to go and just push that in just to free that line as well too. That one actually is a little bit of a pain, can be. Sometimes it sticks, but it will come out. All you got to do is just go to the side of it, press it. Sometimes you got to hit it with a screwdriver. Pops open, and there it is. And then just pull this line up out of there just to give you that little extra wiggle room to be able to free it. Then once you have all those out, flop these out of the way. Now take it from the front up first on this nut on the front, loosen that one, and then slide it up and then forward. Towards the front of the car, and out it comes. Now, once you have this all out of the way, this is the connector that you're going to want. This is where the NPP wire runs into, okay? This is the one we're going to tap into, and it runs all the way down. Now if you look, you can see obviously I've already taken it apart. You can see the electrical tape. I tried to rewrap it best I could, but it runs all the way down there and tucks down into that grommet down there that I pointed out before. But this is where you're going to tap it into. So on this one, get a little better view here for you. You're going to have to take this apart. Okay, so you got to take this thing apart to get to the wires inside and get to the circuitry that I showed you before. So all you got to do is just peel this back, just a little weather grommet or the protective rubber covering. And once you get that back, you'll kind of be able to expose it and see exactly what's in here. Now the thing that you can't see unless you can peel that back is that there's a zip tie right there, and that zip tie goes all the way around and it holds the wires in. To get this top cover off, you have to slide it up past this part, but you have to cut that zip tie. So obviously you're not going to be able to reuse it. Just make sure you have a zip tie when you do it, but you're going to have to cut that off. Be careful when you cut it, because you don't want to cut the wires inside as well. So just snip the zip tie. Okay. Get that out of there. And we'll replace that later. Then just take a flat screwdriver and you're just going to kind of work the ends a little bit, and it's just going to snap off and snap forward. You got to kind of work both sides of it at the same time, but eventually it'll kind of crack loose and go forward. Sometimes it'll be a little annoying because you got to snap one side and the other side snaps back in, but it will come. There it is. Okay. Then slide it forward, just slide it right out. Now, the wire that you're going to need to get to, I'll peel this back and I'll expose it. It's going to be this purple wire up here. But so let me open this up a little bit here and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so these are the wires. This is the wire that you're going to want to get to right here. It's this one right here. It is a purple wire, or it calls it violet. Okay, it looks like it's solid purple. I'm pretty sure it is. I have to check the schematic, but it might have a stripe on it. But either way, don't always go by the color, because colors are sometimes wrong when you go into the manufacturers. They usually are correct, but sometimes the colors are incorrect because they run out of certain color wires and they just use whatever they have. Always go by the terminal number. This terminal is G5. It's kind of hard to tell because it's barely scribed on, like right there, but if you get close to it when you do it, you'll see it says G5. So this is the wire that you're going to want to cut and tap into. Once you get to that, go to about, give yourself a little bit of space, and you're going to cut it. I cut it about right here. Okay. Now if you look down here and see this red wire and this yellow wire, these are the wires that I ran inside the car to control the switch. Those will not be there for you. I added those later in order to get the switch to work. But what you do is cut that purple wire right there and put it into one end of the wire. Doesn't matter which one you do because the switch is interchangeable. It works both ways. Just remember which one is which. Otherwise, you're going to have to kind of play with it and figure it out later. But it's only a two-pronged switch that comes with it, so it's literally impossible to screw it up. So cut that, tap that in there, and then that is going to run down to the switch. Then the switch feeds back. The other side of the switch comes back up, this yellow wire right here. Now the yellow wire right here, here's a connection I made just there with the other end of the purple wire right there that was connected to this before. So now this just goes back to the NPP valves and the actual mufflers themselves. I just took a butt connector and put them in both on the same side and crimped them right there because they were just parallel with each other, rather than bring it all the way up and loop it around and create a loop that I think was going to bend. So that's why that's like that. So make those connections right there. I just used a heat shrink butt connector. I put some heat shrink over it and did the same thing right there. Then when you run it in, you can see I kind of tore it up a little bit, or opened it up a little bit, in order to tape it all up to make it look as clean as possible. Then it ran all those down into there, and then it goes down here where I showed you before with the grommet, pokes through the firewall and goes across the dash to where the switch is. Once you have all those connections made, you're going to go ahead and put everything back together. I'll show you how to do that too. Okay, now that I have this back together, you see all I basically did was just tape it back up. I put another zip tie in there in that one little spot that I showed you where it was cut, because that's just kind of what helps hold it together. See, there it is, and you just run it through, and then you just got all the clips to line up, and it just snaps back into place very easily. And then you get this grommet back over it, and then we'll put the bottom side bracket for the fuse block back in. So you got to hold these three things back and kind of tuck these two out of the way best you can, because you got to take this, slide it in first, and then wiggle it in the front. Get it around the AC line, get it around that coolant line. You are going to have to play with it a little bit to get it to fit, but it fits relatively easily. Once you get all three of them in, you're going to get all three of those studs lined up before. You got the one right there, the one right there, and then the other one down here. Once you have all three of those in, reinstall your three 10mm nuts. I like to just put them in first, thread them into place a little bit, and then run it in with the tool. Then when you get these things back in, to slide it back into here, all you have to do is slide them into place. So you want to bring them forward a little bit and leave about that much room where it is. Push it down so it's flush, then all you got to do is push it forward, and you'll kind of hear it click a little bit. That one wasn't that loud, but then just give it a jiggle and you'll see it's in place. Then just repeat with the rest of them. Sometimes they kind of, you just gotta line it up. There you go. There's that one. Now this one is the one with the wires that we did, so that one lines in, and just make sure that it's tucked in properly, which it pretty much always does. This one, when you put this one in, don't forget to take this wire and tuck it underneath the AC right here. That's how it's supposed to fit. Go in there, slip, and slide it forward. Then just give each one of them a shake just to make sure that they're in properly, which they are. Then reclip your AC line, reclip your coolant line down here, tuck that back in there, and then make sure these also sit in there too, which they are all good. Okay. Then you're going to put the junction block back in. Now the junction block's going to go back in kind of the same way as it came out. Put these handles together and keep the two battery terminal cables out of the way. Slide it in, it'll just kind of line up, and again, you're just going to kind of have to play with it and wiggle it a little bit to get it to go in. So, because remember, you got to line up all 5 of the connectors as well as the 4 prongs that hold it in. So, it's going to be a little bit of a pain, but it will line up. There you go. You'll feel it kind of drop down a little bit. Then when it drops, you're going to play with these handles and get it to go in. Like I said, it can be a little bit of a pain because you do have to line up all these things. So there we go. Oh, see how it kind of dropped a little bit? That's it. And then you kind of go down and see it now. Now don't put it all the way in once you do that, because you still got to come over here and reconnect these. So bring that one up first, and then that one. Once those are on, reinstall your 13mm nut that holds those in. And now, flip the little cover back over for that. And now take these and push them down. Once you get that, whole thing will seat. All 4 of the clips now locked it in. And the panels are down, and now it's in. So now you just take your cover, put that back on. Okay. And now the junction block is back in with your terminals connected. Then you just reattach all your hoses and your clips. And everything will go back in. Okay. Hose vent clips. Bring this back over. Goes into the tank. Reconnect that clip. Reconnect that clip. And then you have your purge line as well, which routes underneath there. Clip it in there. Clip it in there. And now you're all done underneath here. Okay, so now that after all the wires were ran and everything, I mounted the switch just like I showed you before. This is what ultimately comes to. When you start the car up and you flip the switch on and off, it's going to control the valves. Now this switch is only a 2-wire switch. It doesn't have the 3 like the other ones, but it's only 2, so it's just in and out. There's no separate switch for a ground. So with the way you do this switch, you can either wire it one of 2 ways. If you wire it the way that I did, the light will be on when the valves are closed. If you wire it the other way, it'll just be the other way around. I just did it that way because when the light is on, I think the system is on. So once you start it up, you can hear the difference. So now the light is off, the valves are open. Light is on, valves are closed. Now the way you do that also too is, what I like to do is keep the car basically in tour or stealth mode. What that does is it keeps the valves closed at all times, and I can just control it with the flick of the switch. Now, if you go to the back here, now you can take a look. So now, you have your valves in these tips right here, and watch what happens when I flip the switch. Okay, so that's pretty much how you would put in the switch to control the exhaust. Nice little function, nice little feature. It makes it a little easier, like I said. Usually I'll leave the car in stealth mode, so that way I have full control over it at any given time. It's a lot easier just to flip that switch than it is to go into the settings and change it and go back and forth. So anything else that you're wondering about, just let me know. And if any other videos that you want to see, drop a comment below.